Hi there, this is Kevin Patton with a brief audio introduction to episode 60 of the A&P Professor podcast, also known as TAPP Radio, an audio rock opera for teachers of human anatomy and physiology. In the next full episode, that is episode 60, I'm going to finish up the Flashcards Unleashed series by revealing some more of the hidden powers, the ultimate hidden powers of flashcards for retrieval practice. In this third of the series of 3, I finally get to some of the more advanced techniques that you can help your students use to assist in learning. I'll also have a brief tribute to Dr. Bruce S. McEwen, a pioneer in the modern understanding of physiological stress. There's more too, but you're going to have to tune into that full episode to find out what it is. Guess what? This podcast has a new sponsor. You'll hear more about this sponsor in the upcoming full episode, that is episode 60. But this is a preview, so hey, why not preview the new sponsor right now? It's ADInstruments. You may already be familiar with ADInstruments. They provide the Power Lab data acquisition systems, the LT online learning platform, and lots of content for laboratory learning in physiology, anatomy, and biology. If you want a preview of some of the things you can do to make learning more active and more memorable in your classroom and teaching lab, then why not check out ADInstruments at this link. That's go.adinstruments.com/podcast. So once again, it's go.adinstruments.com/podcast. Or you can just use the link in the show notes or the episode page at the approfessor.org/60. Hold on, I forgot one of the best parts of this, and that is that ADInstruments is offering 10% off select solutions for listeners to the A&P Professor podcast. Yeah, that's right, 10% off, and this goes through March. Just go to their website at go.adinstruments.com/podcast and then use their Lab Solution Builder, and remember to mention this podcast on any web form in order to get your 10% off. It's time once again for Word Dissection, where we practice what we all do in our teaching and take apart words and translate their parts to deepen our understanding. Sometimes they're old and familiar terms, and sometimes they're terms new to us, or maybe so fresh that they're new to everyone. Our first term on our list for dissection today is the term allostasis. Breaking apart that first word part off of the whole, we have allo, A-L-L-O, and that literally means different. And then the second word part is stasis, which means standing still. So we put that together and translate it literally. It's referring to standing still when things are, well, a bit different from normal. So we can think of that literally, think of trying to stand still, and think of something unusual like a gust of wind or somebody brushing by you and knocking into you. What do? We try to still stay standing up. When we apply the term allostasis to physiology, what it refers to is all of those active processes that our body uses when it attempts to maintain or to restore typical optimal conditions while under stress. So in other words, something is happening, some kind of stressful thing is happening, and we're trying to maintain our balance, which we know as homeostasis. So allostasis is what's happening when we're under stress and it's hard to maintain homeostasis. So we pull out all kinds of different processes that allow us to still maintain some sort of stability. even if it's not the usual stability. Like, think of, again, trying to stand up in a windstorm. You might be able to remain standing, but you're not necessarily going to be straight up. And you're probably going to be expending a lot more energy to stay standing than you would be if it were just normal conditions. To put it simply, we could just say that allostasis is a set of coping mechanisms that our body uses when things are different from normal. And that leads us to our second term on our dissection list, and that is allostatic. It's just another form of the word allostasis. It's the adjective form. So again, allo means different, stasis means standing still, and the IC ending means relating to. It converts it into an adjective. So allostatic is then going to be a term that we use to describe anything that somehow relates to allostasis. For example, there's a term that's often used called allostatic load. So that means it's the load that relates to allostasis. So it's a physiological load, the wear and tear and increased energy expenditure of all those stress responses that are occurring and trying to maintain a stability. Our next term on the dissection list is not one that you would expect to see on an A and B list of terms, but maybe we should. And that is the term emoji. Yeah, emoji. E-M-O-J-I. Now, when we start to dissect this one, the first thing that we notice is it's not Latin. It's not even Greek. It's not even Old English. I mean, those are the things we're kind of used to seeing. In this case, it's derived from Japanese word parts. The first word part, the E part, in Japanese can be translated as picture. The second word part, the moji part, M-O-J-I, means a character, or a letter of an alphabet would be an example of a character. So we put that together, and literally it means a picture character or a picture letter. It's a pictogram or pictograph. Now, a lot of people think that the word emoji is derived from or of a different version of the word emoticon. Now, an emoticon is when one or more text letters are used to represent emotions, like when you use a single parenthesis to represent a smile and therefore represent the emotion of happiness. But it turns out that these are Japanese word parts making up emoji, and it has nothing to do with the source of the word emoticon, even though there's some similarity in terms of when and how you might use them. The term emoji is believed to have originated in Japanese mobile phones in the late 1990s. And dictionary.com defines emoji as a small digital picture or pictorial symbol that represents a thing, feeling, concept, etc., used in text messages and other electronic communications, and usually part of a standardized set. And by the way, in the word emoji, you often see it in all small case letters, being a common noun. But because it can refer to a standardized set, in that case, it might be a proper noun and you would want to use uppercase, capital letter for the E in emoji. So it's going to depend on context. The next term in our dissection list is the term cumulative. Now this term, cumulative, first came up way back in episode 4 when I talked about why making all tests cumulative is good for learning. And we also learned that although students may at first think cumulative testing is going to kill them, it won't. And most students will actually come to love it. I know you don't believe it, but try it. So let's break apart the word cumulative. The first part of the word cumul means heap or pile. It actually comes from the Latin noun cumulus, which is the name of a kind of cloud that looks like a bunch of stuff all piled up, right? So cumul means heap or pile. And then the AT is derived from ATE, and that's a stem that's used to convert a noun to a verb. So in this case, the noun pile is now a verb, as in pile up or heap together. Then the next word part is the IVE ending, and that means relating to, especially in terms of having a tendency or a certain function. So if we put that all together, literally cumulative means showing the tendency of piling things up. And we use it in education to refer to tests that pile up all the learning so far into a test. So that's cumulative testing in that case. This podcast is sponsored by HAPS, the Human Anatomy and Physiology Society, promoting excellence in the teaching of human anatomy and physiology for over 30 years. Don't forget that February 21st is the deadline for the early bird discount for the HAPS annual conference in Ottawa this May. It's going to sneak up on you faster than you think, so go visit HAPS at theapprofessor.org/HAPS. That's HAPS. I wonder if you've experienced any kind of stress over the last week. Most people would say yes to that, me included. After all, I have a podcast episode to get out, and the preview, and I need to select a book club recommendation for that preview. So, okay, my heart rate is already higher than it was a few minutes ago just thinking about the stress that I was feeling over this last week. But really, what is stress? And what's the best way to explain it as a physiological phenomenon to our A&P students? I did my graduate research in physiological stress, and I often struggle with how to explain it to my students in a way that will both expand and deepen their understanding. After all, stress is part of our lives, and it touches on nearly every aspect of what the future healthcare professionals taking my A&P course will be doing in their careers. So it's, kind of important, right? In a book called The End of Stress as We Know It, the leading authority on stress, Bruce McEwen of Rockefeller University, tackles the whole stress story. Besides explaining the ins and outs of stress as a physiological phenomenon, he also updates our understanding of stress as allostatic load, a kind of coping with abnormal conditions or situations. If you want an interesting read on an important topic that you already cover in your own story of the human body told in your own course, this is the book for you. I guarantee that your story will shift in many ways as you read McEwen's version of a story that he's been refining for an entire lifetime. The End of Stress as We Know It is the current recommendation from the A&P Professor Book Club. And it's one of those essential books that every A&P teacher ought to have in their professional library, or on their Kindle, or iPad, or I don't know, whatever. The free distribution of this podcast is sponsored by the Master of Science in Human Anatomy and Physiology Instruction, the HAPI degree. It's a degree for folks who already have a graduate degree but want to power up their teaching by filling in gaps in science training and by getting up to speed with contemporary teaching practices. Check out this online graduate program at nycc.edu/HAPI or click the link in the show notes or episode page. Hey, remember that survey I mentioned in the last episode? The one that's going to help me figure out what's working and what's not working and what kinds of things I can tweak to make this the best podcast that's going to serve you well. Well, it's still out there and I still need responses. So please, just take a few minutes, and it really does take just a few minutes. Go to the approfessor.org/survey and fill it out. It'll help me a lot, and I really, really appreciate your time and effort in doing that. Once again, it's approfessor.org/survey. Searchable transcript and a captioned audiogram of this preview episode are funded by AAA, the American Association for Anatomy. I've mentioned before that the anatomy.org website's been redone. If you go to the home page, just click on the Take a Tour link that's in the What's New section in the space below the big photograph, and check it out. Again, that's anatomy.org. Well, this is Kevin Patton signing off for now and reminding you to keep your questions and comments coming. Why not call the podcast hotline right now at 1-833-LION-DEN. That's 1-833-546-6336. Or visit us at theapprofessor.org. I'll see you down the road. Support for this preview episode comes from the American Association for Anatomy, ADInstruments, the Human Anatomy and Physiology Society, and the Master of Science in Human Anatomy and Physiology Instruction.